Good evening and many thanks for joining us. You're watching QTV News and we're broadcasting live from our studios on Caraba Avenue. Here are the main news headlines. The Gambia has become the second to last country in Africa to ratify the 1986 amendment of the Constitution of the International Labour Organization 36 years after adopting it. The Director of Transport at the Ministry of Transport, Works and Infrastructure has said that the General Transport Union did not give the Transport Ministry the chance for negotiations before the ongoing drivers' strike. And girls from over 40 communities in the North Bank region over the weekend trained on personal hygiene, reproductive health and how to make sanitary pads. In international news, William Ruto was sworn in as Kenya's 5th president on Tuesday, a week after the Supreme Court rejected a challenge by his defeated opponent, Raila Odinga. And in international news, the CAF Champions League matches got underway this week with preliminary matches as club football in Africa begins this weekend across the continent. But for more on these and other stories coming up, I'm Ansmane Nyase. And now we take a look at the news in detail. The Gambia has become the second to last country in Africa to ratify the 1986 amendment of the Constitution of the International Labour Organization 36 years after adopting it. Mawala Choi tells us more.
In 1986, the Gambia as an International Labour Organization member state adopted an amendment to the ILO Constitution that seeks to make the governance structure of the organization more democratic and non-discriminatory. 36 years on, the Justice Minister, Dauda Ejalo, has introduced the amendments to the National Assembly.
The 1986 amendment also introduces adjustments to the rules for voting at the conference as regards the required majorities and quorum, and sets out different voting and ratification requirements for constitutional amendments related to specific considerations.
The amendments would affect 11 of the 40 articles within the ILO Constitution to make membership of the governing body be more representative by providing more space for appointments that consider various geographic, economic and social interests of its member states. The amendment requires 2/3 of ILO member countries to ratify it for it to come into force. As of June this year, there have been 121 ratifications by the 187 member states.
The African group has been clear and unanimous in its view that Africa has been historically discriminated against in terms of the composition of the governing body. The group also agreed that the 1986 amendment represents the goal of equitable, non-discriminatory representation of all regions within the governing body.
The National Assembly is legally mandated to approve or reject international agreements or legal instruments the country signed or adopted in external relations. However, the power of the legislature is limited as it can only perform oversight without authority to make amendments to international agreements or legal instruments. Bileji Tunkara and Yahya Sanyang are announced for Kantora and Latrikunda Sabiji respectively.
I did reiterate that it's now people-centered ILO in the sense that there are a series of prospective amendments, progressive amendments in the document before us.
Because for me, if according to what the Honorable Minister said, if you bring an instrument before us and we are committed to that instrument being recalled, I ask myself, why do we debate on it now? If it is something we cannot change and you still come here, we waste our time, processes and everything, but we cannot change anything there. So it means we are committed to this particular instrument being recalled.
The debate garnered popular support among NAMs, although some raised concerns and called for rigorous legislative scrutiny. In response, the Justice Minister reminds the NAMs that the ratification was not a legislative exercise, but an oversight on the executive's decision on external relations. After consideration, the ILO constitutional amendment was approved and ratified by the Assembly in a majority vote. The International Labour Organization is the first and oldest UN agency and was formed in 1919. It is the only tripartite UN agency in that it brings together governments, employers and workers of 187 member states. The organization sets international labor standards to ensure accessible, productive, and sustainable work worldwide in conditions of freedom, equity, security, and dignity. Mohamed Lamin Choi, QTV News.
Now, the Director of Transport at the Ministry of Transport, Works and Infrastructure has said that the General Transport Union did not give the Transport Ministry the chance for negotiations before the drivers' sit-down strike, which began on Monday. More in this report by Omar P. Jallo.
Esa Drame, the Director of Transport at the Ministry of Transport, Works and Infrastructure, said his ministry is committed to meeting the demands of the Transport Union, provided it is a fair deal for the public. He stressed that it is not justifiable to increase transport fares in a disorderly and chaotic manner where commuters are charged multiple fares for the same route. He therefore called on the General Transport Union to honor the agreed initiative of a pilot route licensing scheme as a strategy to eradicate multiple charging on the same route.
To our surprise, because, they came on Friday and then they met the Honorable Minister. And on Saturday, I think the press release was out that, they embarking on a sit-down, strike.
Meanwhile, the president of the General Transport Union, Omar Sise, disputed the Transport Ministry's claim that the union is not interested in negotiations.
We don't see any commitment from our ministry on the subject matter. So our last discussion with them on Friday, we're not happy with the way they have been, handling our discussions, our issues.
Drame, the Director of Transport, also reveals that the strike is neither in the interest of the Transport Union, the public, nor the government. He added that the doors of the Ministry of Transport are always open for negotiations, adding that the commercial drivers have a very important role to play in society.
Pump price is not, directly under the control of the ministry. So that's why, for us, we agree with them that we have no control over the pump price. So when the pump price, reach to a certain level, we will sit with them. But what they are not also telling the general public is that there was also an agreement that as a condition to the implementation of the fare increment at the time is to have what we call this route licensing, because it has been a concern by most of the commuters that they have been paying double or triple fares for one route. So we made it as a condition.
Amadou Drame, the head of traffic operation at the Gambia Transport Service Company, GTSC, said when the General Transport Union announced the nationwide strike, the GTSC management devised a strategy to fully deploy its fleet of buses across the Greater Banjul area, in line with government's transport policy, to ease the difficulties commuters are facing.
Part of the plan, we targeted a lot of routes and the garages, because that's where the hub is. Garages is where people will actually position themselves to be carried from those garages. So we stationed vehicles in most of the garages, and then on the tar roads, we deployed as much as possible to make sure all commuters coming to the highway will be carried to where they possibly want to go to.
The demands for the General Transport Union are for the government to reduce the fuel price, minimize the number of police checkpoints on the main highways, reduction of toll fees at the Senegambia Bridge, and the extension of driver's license expiry time. The ongoing strike is causing travel disruption and long queues on roadsides, leaving commuters stranded. As the stalemate continues between the Transport Ministry and the General Transport Union, with each blaming each other, it is obvious that everyone is losing, except some of the unscrupulous drivers who decided to charge between $50 to $150 for a journey that previously cost between $15 and $25. Reporting for QTV News, I am Omar P. Jallo.
And girls from over 40 communities in the North Bank region over the weekend trained on personal hygiene, reproductive health, and how to make sanitary pads. The training was organized by Action Aid in partnership with Girls Agenda. Here's the report. It is a fact that women and girls in the Greater Banjul area enjoy better internet and other facilities, including frequent training on personal hygiene and sexual and gender-based violence. Some of the girls being trained here are from the remotest villages in the North Bank and are expected to share their experiences gained here with their peers and family members when they return home. Sekou Efba, Action Aid's LRP Program and Sponsorship Coordinator for Jufure Office, says teaching girls how to maintain good personal hygiene and issues of sexual and gender-based violence should be everyone's business.
The reason why we are doing this is because we want to empower them. You realize that if they are empowered at this level, at the age of 13, 14, when they grow even above 18 years, it will be very difficult for anyone to direct gender-based violence against them, and they can also make their bodies very decent when it comes to how to manage the gender menstrual cycle.
Saribo Baji, Program Officer and Lead Facilitator at Girls Agenda, explained some of the things they are teaching these girls and the impacts he hopes it will have on their lives.
We're teaching them about sexual and reproductive health and rights, comprehensive sexuality education, menstruation and menstrual health hygiene management, and then also we're also teaching them how to make reusable sanitary pads for themselves.
And how has the training been going so far?
The training has been going on very well since Tuesday. The participants are participating, learning is going on, and then we have a lot of exercises, and then it's going on very well.
Ramatulai Cham and Sali Jara are among the participants camped at Jera Camp in Sitalunku, Opanyomi. They speak highly of the training and thank Action Aid for organizing such important training.
We are here with the Action Aid project. We learn about menstruation and how to clean ourselves during menstruation, and the materials we should use when we are seeing our menstruation.
The way they teach us, we learn from them something we never knew, because they teach us that even the practice of FGM is not even good.
Research has shown that inadequate access to menstrual health and hygiene products keep girls out of school and widens the inequality gap. This training, therefore, couldn't be timely, especially for these girls, many of whom are from underprivileged families and communities. Ansmane Sonyasi for KTV News. And the report there will lead us to the commercial break, but we will be right back.
Hello and welcome to US Embassy Gambia Today, a podcast brought to you by US Embassy Banjul. This weekly podcast will feature leaders and our partners in the Gambia. Join us every Wednesday as we broadcast these informative episodes from our American Corner studio at Africell in Bundung. We are on Spotify, Google, SoundCloud, and Apple Podcast. You can also follow the program on our Facebook and Twitter pages at US Embassy Banjul. US Embassy Gambia Today, bringing the Gambia and the United States closer.
COVID-19 is real. Get vaccinated against COVID-19. The vaccine is safe and effective. The vaccine is readily available in any health facility, free of charge. Currently, there are 3 different types of vaccines, namely Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, and Sinopharm. Hand washing with soap, when done correctly, is critical in the fight against COVID-19. Wash your hands frequently, including every time you enter the home or office. Avoid shaking hands with other people. After you cough or sneeze, and before you eat, use soap and water or an alcohol-based hand rub. Clean frequently touched surfaces, frequently with chlorine or alcohol solution. Remember, no one is safe until we are all safe. This message is brought to you by the Ministry of Health and the Gambia Country Coordinating Mechanism with funding from the Global Fund to fight AIDS, TB, and malaria. For more information, please call our toll-free number 1025.
Welcome back, and be reminded you're following QTV News and we're broadcasting live from our studios on Caraba Avenue. Now, a former youth activist and artist, Aliun Jai, has called on young people to learn skills and engage in meaningful activities than take the so-called backway journey to Europe. Njai, who recently returned home to establish a successful poultry farm, was speaking to QTV in an exclusive interview. More in this report. Once a popular musician and strong youth advocate, Aliun Jai, also known by his stage name Nati Chemical, is a migrant returnee making waves in the poultry industry in Opanyomi in the North Bank region. Nati hails from the village of Jurunku, where he's established a poultry farm and has dreams to expand what he says is a better life compared to being an undocumented migrant in Europe. Despite the popularity he enjoyed in music, he struggled to fend for his family. and with little hope of making it at home, Natty, like many other young people, embarked on the perilous journey to Europe. Through the Sahara Desert to Libya, where he tells me of his painful, unimaginable encounters with people smugglers and of the many friends who died in his presence, along with migrants from other countries, crammed onto barely seaworthy boats they took on the treacherous journey from the high seas of the Mediterranean from Libya to Italy. However, upon arrival, his dreams of making it big in Europe appeared far-fetched by the day. He was an undocumented migrant struggling to survive in Italy.
Before, I have that belief if you go to Europe, you will just pick the money on the ground. It was hard for me there because in Europe also, if you don't get documents, it's a little bit hard.
Natty had been an ardent poultry farmer even before traveling to Europe, and having returned home recently, he restarted his poultry business. With support from Action Aid, he was able to purchase over 100 birds. His dream, he says, is to expand this poultry business and create opportunities for other young people.
It's normal to me because what I see in this backway, maybe if I told you, it's going to be more heart-touching, what I feel, I myself. So if you see me back in Gambia talking to you, doing poultry farm, say, Alhamdulillah, I could have died. So I know what I see there, I know, and I face what I got the experience, I know what happened through this backway. Yeah.
Having spent 5 years in Italy and struggled to secure legal documentation, Natty moved to Germany. Before that, he would occasionally be invited to perform at shows at nightclubs in Napoli and other cities across Italy. At one time, he even performed with popular Gambian musician Mighty Joe during one of the latter's trips to Italy. Natty still harbors dreams of making it big in music.
Sometimes people talk, I heard it from my good friends, our neighbors. Yeah, they said Natty wouldn't make it in life because you went to Europe. You went to Europe for 5 years. You don't have documents. You come back. You decided to do this poultry, foolish farming, or whatsoever. You said you are waiting documents. I had all, but you have to be strong because before it's here I born. I go to Europe. I have 5 years. You talking? You don't go to Europe. You don't even have one night there. So, I'm blessed with my life, and I give thanks. I give thanks.
He says there are people in his neighborhood who see him as a failure for returning home with almost nothing after 6 years abroad. But as he plans to get married to his British fiancée in the coming weeks and dreams to succeed in both music and poultry farming, Natty says so long as he is alive and business is thriving, he is never giving up. Ansmane Sonyasi for KTV News. Quite an inspiring story there, and we'll now take a look at international news in a moment. Now, William Ruto was sworn in as Kenya's 5th president on Tuesday, a week after the Supreme Court rejected a challenge by his defeated opponent Raila Odinga. The event was attended by tens of thousands of people at a ceremony in the capital, Nairobi. Here's an excerpt of his inaugural speech.
To the people of Kenya, this is a momentous occasion for our country. Our politics and our elections have never failed to be emotive, engaging, and dramatic. The most recent installment, however, showcased our most exemplary democratic performance. This day comes on the back of a peaceful election following an intense issue-based campaign in which major coalitions made up of strong political parties canvassed their agenda and took it for examination by the people of Kenya. The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission stewarded a transparent and credible election whose result faithfully reflects the democratic will of the people of Kenya. The certified parties exercise their right to petition before the Supreme Court, whose proceedings and determination not only gave comfort to the doubtful, but also restored faith in our electoral and judicial institutions. Many countries aspire to have moments like this, and we as Kenyans should not take ours for granted. This is the third election under the Constitution of Kenya 2010 and the second peaceful transition. We have had a robust conversation about this moment and what it demands of us. And we have sought to answer the question whether this is a constitutional moment or an economic moment. In this process, we have demonstrated the maturity of our democracy, the robustness of our institutions, and the resilience of the Kenyan people. My competitors and I mobilized vigorously to offer the citizens of Kenya the most appealing agenda as well as the best roadmap to achieving it. I remain firm in the conviction that all sides in the last election did their best to present a pathway to actualize the people's aspirations.
Important message there, and we wish President Ruto and the people of Kenya all the best going forward. And we'll now take a look at sports news. Now, while attention focuses on European football's big nights as their Champions League resumes, club football in Africa has been on this weekend across the continent. The CAF Champions League matches got underway this week with preliminary matches. Our sport reporter Mohamed Gajaga has been following, and here now reports.
Teams from East Africa are the biggest winners. Young Africans and Viper recorded wins in their fixtures. Young Africans from Tanzania played against Zalan FC of South Sudan in Dar es Salaam. They took full advantage of playing an away fixture at home, winning 4-0 against Zalan, whose Rumbek Freedom Square Stadium failed to get approval. DR Congo player Festin Mayele scored a hat-trick, starting and finishing the scoring in the 46th and 88th minute respectively. Meanwhile, in Congo-Brazzaville, where Central African Republic's Olympique de Real de Bangui were hosting their home match, Uganda's Viper emerged with a massive 3-0 win, with goals from new signing Abdulumala and Issa Mibiru, as well as a third from Najib Yiga. Cameroonian champions Cotonsport also picked up a huge away win, beating Lesotho's Matlama 3-0 in Maseru, with goals from Brandon Yefes Eno, Swaibu Maru, and David Kokolome. In Maputo, Mozambique, Angola's Pedro de Luanda, who reached the semis of last season's Champions League, edged out home side Black Bulls 3-0, courtesy of second-half goals from skipper Diego Azulo, Anderson Cruz, and Pedro Pinto. Another team to pick up a healthy away win was Tanzania's Simba SC, who won 2-0 against Nyasaya Big Bullets of Malawi. Meanwhile, Casa Sport of Senegal managed a 1-0 win over Algerian outfit JS Kabylie in a massive result heading into the return tie. Botswana's Gaborone United also picked up a slim victory over a tough opponent, Tetro Satsile's 35th minute goal, handing them a 1-0 victory over AS Vita Club of DR Congo. Nigeria's Rivers United also earned a healthy win at home in the first leg, edging out Liberia's Watanga 3-0. Burundian debutants Flambeau de Santre meanwhile beat last season's CAF Confederation Cup semi-finalist Al Ittihad of Libya 1-0 at home, while Rwanda's APR had a similar result against Tunisia's US Monastir in Hewi. The second leg matches are scheduled to be played next weekend, with aggregate winners going through to the second preliminary round. Mamadou Gajaga, QTV News.
Some exciting fixtures and results in the CAF Champions League, and I'm afraid this is where we draw the curtains on this bulletin. But before we take a leave of you, here's a recap for main headlines. The Gambia has become the second to last country in Africa to ratify the 1986 amendment of the Constitution of the International Labour Organization, 36 years after adopting it. The Director of Transport at the Ministry of Transport, Works and Infrastructure has said that the General Transport Union did not give the Transport Ministry the chance for negotiations before the drivers' sit-down strike. And girls from over 40 communities in the North Bank region over the weekend trained on personal hygiene, reproductive health and how to make sanitary pads. In international news, William Ruto was sworn in as Kenya's 5th president on Tuesday, a week after the Supreme Court rejected a challenge by his defeated opponent Raila Odinga. And in sports news, the CAF Champions League matches got underway this week with preliminary matches as club football in Africa begins this weekend across the continent. That's all for this edition. Do join us at 10 p.m. for more news. Until then, on behalf of the entire production team, thanks for watching.